The dust had barely settled from the horse's hooves when Lily Reynolds heard her husband's voice carrying through the general store window, loud enough to stop her heart mid-beat. "That man's the one who's cruel," Thomas Reynolds announced to the gathering of merchants and ranchers, his words dripping with venom as he pointed toward the tall cowboy tying his horse to the hitching post across the street. "Don't let his quiet ways fool you none. Cole Foster's got a mean streak wider than the Republican River." It was July 1878 in Concordia, Kansas, and the summer heat pressed down on the small prairie town like a wool blanket. Lily stood frozen in the doorway of the mercantile, her basket of supplies growing heavy in her trembling hands. She had seen Cole Foster around town before, a ranch hand who worked the cattle spreads north of town, always polite when he tipped his hat to the ladies, always respectful when he conducted his business. The man her husband was describing bore no resemblance to the quiet cowboy she had observed from a distance these past few months. Thomas had been spreading lies about people for years, but this felt different. There was an edge to his voice that Lily recognized, the same tone he used when he was building up to something darker. She had learned to read the warning signs in her husband's behavior during their 3 years of marriage, learned when to make herself small and invisible, learned when to agree with everything he said, even when her soul rebelled against the injustice of it. She was 22 years old and felt ancient. "I seen him beat a man half to death in Abilene," Thomas continued, warming to his audience. "Left him bleeding in the street over a card game. Sheriff had to run him out of town." Lily knew this was a lie. Cole Foster had only arrived in Concordia 2 months ago, coming up from Texas with a cattle drive. She had heard the real story from Mrs. Patterson at the church social. Cole had helped deliver a difficult calf in a spring storm, staying up all night to save both the cow and her baby. He had refused extra payment, saying it was just the decent thing to do. But the men in the general store were nodding, taking in Thomas's words like gospel truth. Her husband had that effect on people. He was a successful grain merchant, well-dressed and well-spoken, the kind of man who knew how to present himself in society. No one would believe that behind closed doors, he was something else entirely. Lily stepped back into the shadows of the covered walkway, watching as Cole Foster finished securing his horse. He was tall and lean, with sun-darkened skin and dark brown hair that touched his collar. He moved with the easy grace of a man comfortable in his own body, no wasted motion, no unnecessary flourish. When he turned toward the general store, she saw his face clearly for the first time. Strong jaw, straight nose, eyes the color of creek water in autumn, brown-green and clear. Those eyes swept the street and landed on her for just a moment. He touched the brim of his hat in a gesture of courtesy, a small smile lifting one corner of his mouth. Then Thomas was there, stepping out of the store with 3 other men, blocking Cole's path. "We don't want your kind here, Foster," Thomas said, his voice loud enough to carry to every corner of the dusty street. "Why don't you move along before there's trouble?" Cole stopped, his expression unreadable. "I'm just here to pick up supplies, Mr. Reynolds. Don't want any trouble." "You should have thought about that before you built your reputation," Thomas shot back. "We've got families here, decent people. We don't need a violent man making folks nervous." Lily saw Cole's jaw tighten, saw the flash of confusion and hurt in his eyes before he shuttered it away. He didn't defend himself, didn't argue. He just nodded slowly and turned back to his horse. "That's right. Run along," Thomas called after him, and the men around him laughed. Something in Lily's chest cracked open then, a fissure in the wall she had built around her heart. She watched Cole Foster ride away, his back straight and proud despite the humiliation, and she knew with absolute certainty that her husband had just destroyed an innocent man's reputation for no reason other than his own twisted pleasure. That night, Thomas came home drunk and mean. Lily had learned to read these moods too, had learned that sometimes the best strategy was to be elsewhere. She slipped out the back door while he was still fumbling with his boots in the parlor and walked the dark streets of Concordia until she found herself on the edge of town, where the prairie stretched out endless and free under a sky full of stars. She sat on a fallen cottonwood log and let herself cry, something she rarely allowed herself to do. The tears were not just for Cole Foster, though her heart ached for the injustice done to him. They were for herself, for the girl she had been before Thomas, for the dreams she had harbored of a loving marriage and a happy home. Her parents had died of fever when she was 19, leaving her alone and vulnerable. Thomas had seemed like salvation then, a successful businessman who promised security and respectability. She had not known that security could be its own kind of prison. "Madam, are you all right?" The voice startled her so badly she nearly fell off the log. She looked up through tear-blurred eyes to see Cole Foster standing a respectful distance away, his horse grazing nearby. Even in the moonlight, she could see the concern on his face. "I'm fine," she said automatically, wiping at her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you." "You're not disturbing anyone," he said gently. "But it's not safe for a lady to be out here alone after dark. Can I escort you home?" "No." The word came out too sharp, too desperate. She softened her tone. "I mean, thank you, but I'll be fine. I just needed some air." Cole was quiet for a moment, and she could feel him studying her in the darkness. "You're Thomas Reynolds' wife," he said finally. It was not a question. "Yes." She felt shame wash over her, as if her husband's cruelty was somehow her fault. "I'm sorry if I caused you any trouble today," Cole said, surprising her. "I don't know what I did to earn your husband's dislike, but I never meant to bring problems to your door." Lily looked up at him, astonished. "You didn't do anything wrong. My husband, sometimes he says things that aren't true." She had never admitted this to anyone before, had never spoken a word against Thomas to another living soul. The words hung in the air between them, dangerous and liberating. Cole moved closer, slow and careful, like he was approaching a spooked horse. He sat down on the log, keeping a proper distance between them. "I figured as much," he said quietly. "A man who lies about one thing usually lies about a lot of things." "I heard what he said about you in the general store," Lily confessed. "I know it wasn't true. Mrs. Patterson told me about how you helped save that calf in the spring storm." "Mrs. Patterson talks too much," Cole said, but there was warmth in his voice. "It wasn't anything special, just doing what needed to be done." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the prairie, crickets singing, a distant coyote howling, the wind rustling through the tall grass. Lily felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest, something that might have been hope. "Why did he do it?" Cole asked finally. "Why did your husband tell those lies about me?" Lily considered the question carefully. "I think because he can," she said slowly. "Because it makes him feel powerful to destroy things. He's always been that way, but I didn't see it until after we were married." "That must be hard," Cole said, and the simple sympathy in his voice nearly undid her. "I should go," she said, standing abruptly. "If he wakes and finds me gone, it will be worse." Cole stood too, his expression troubled. "Does he hurt you, madam?" The question hung between them like a loaded gun. Lily could not bring herself to answer, but she knew her silence was answer enough. "If you ever need help," Cole said carefully, "there's a ranch about 5 miles north of town, the Circle K. I work there as foreman. You come find me if you need anything, understand? Day or night." Lily nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She hurried away into the darkness, back toward the house that had never been a home, back toward the man who wore a gentleman's face in public and showed his true nature only to her. The summer days that followed were tense and difficult. Thomas's campaign against Cole Foster intensified. He spread more stories, each more outlandish than the last. Cole had killed a man in cold blood. Cole had stolen horses. Cole had ruined a young woman's reputation in Texas. None of it was true, but the repetition had its effect. People crossed the street when they saw Cole coming. The general store owner refused to sell him supplies. The boarding house where he had been staying asked him to leave. Lily watched it all from behind the careful mask she wore in public, the dutiful wife who smiled and nodded and never contradicted her husband. But inside, her anger grew. She started to notice other things too, things she had been too frightened or too beaten down to see before. The way Thomas controlled every aspect of their life, from what she wore to who she spoke to. The way he isolated her from any potential friends or allies. The way he used his reputation and influence to bend the whole town to his will. She began to understand that Cole Foster was not Thomas's first victim, just his most recent. There had been others, a young clerk who had been run out of town for supposedly stealing from the till, a farmer who had lost his credit at the bank after Thomas spread rumors about his debts, a widow who had been shunned by the church after Thomas suggested impropriety in her behavior. Her husband was a poison in the heart of Concordia, and no one else seemed to see it. One afternoon in early August, Lily was shopping for fabric at the dry goods store when she overheard two women talking in the next aisle. "I feel terrible about that Foster fellow," one of them said. It was Martha Wilson, the blacksmith's wife. "He seems like such a nice young man. Are we sure Thomas Reynolds is telling the truth about him?" "Thomas wouldn't lie," the other woman replied firmly. It was Sarah Gunderson, the banker's wife, and Thomas's staunchest supporter. "He's one of the most respected men in town. If he says Cole Foster is dangerous, then we should believe him." "I suppose," Martha said doubtfully. "It's just that I remember when Thomas said those things about poor Daniel Crawford, and then we found out later that Daniel had been telling the truth all along. Thomas had been the one stealing from the grain shipments." "That was never proven," Sarah said sharply. "And you shouldn't spread gossip, Martha. It's unbecoming." Lily's hands stilled on the bolt of calico she had been examining. Daniel Crawford. She remembered that name, remembered a young man with scared eyes who had left town suddenly 3 years ago, right around the time she had married Thomas. She had never heard the full story, but now pieces were falling into place. That evening, she waited until Thomas was occupied with his ledgers in the study, then slipped out to the small public library that operated out of the church basement. The librarian, an elderly woman named Miss Howell, greeted her with surprise. "Mrs. Reynolds, what a pleasant surprise. Are you looking for something in particular?" "I was wondering if you kept old newspapers," Lily said carefully. "I wanted to read about some of the town's history." Miss Howell's eyes sharpened with interest, but she simply nodded and led Lily to a back room where bound volumes of the Concordia Blade were stored. Lily spent the next 2 hours poring over old issues, following the trail of her husband's destruction. Daniel Crawford had accused Thomas of skimming from the Grain Merchants Collective 3 years ago. The accusations had appeared in one issue of the paper, carefully worded and backed by documentation. But the next week, there had been a flurry of letters and articles defending Thomas and attacking Daniel's character. Daniel was a drunk, they said. Daniel was in debt. Daniel had been seen with questionable women. By the 3rd week, Daniel had left town, and the whole matter had been forgotten. But Lily had found something interesting in those old papers. The handwriting in several of the letters defending Thomas looked remarkably similar. She was not an expert, but it seemed to her that perhaps one person had written multiple letters, signing different names to create the appearance of widespread support. She found other stories too. A young woman named Claire, who had rejected Thomas's advances before he married Lily and had subsequently been accused of loose morals until her family had moved to Salina. A rival merchant who had been driven out of business by rumors that his scales were weighted incorrectly. The pattern was clear once you knew to look for it. Lily left the library feeling sick, but also, strangely, stronger. Knowledge was power, even if she did not yet know how to use it. She did not see Cole Foster for several weeks. She knew from overheard conversations that he was still working at the Circle K ranch, still showing up to do his job despite being unwelcome in town. She found herself thinking about him more than she should, remembering the kindness in his voice when he had found her crying by the prairie, the way he had offered help without asking for anything in return. Then, in late August, Thomas announced that he was going to Salina for a week on business. Lily felt a guilty relief wash over her. A week of peace, a week without walking on eggshells, a week without fear. The morning after Thomas left, she woke early and made a decision. She packed a small basket with food and borrowed the neighbor's horse, saying she wanted to go riding to escape the heat. Then she rode north, following the directions Cole had given her that night by the prairie. The Circle K ranch sprawled across a green valley where the Republican River wound through cottonwoods and willows. It was a prosperous operation, with good fences and well-maintained buildings. Lily found Cole in the breaking corral, working with a young chestnut mare that danced and snorted at the end of a long lead rope. He saw her approaching, and his expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, pleasure, concern. He handed the lead rope to another ranch hand and walked over to the fence where Lily waited. "Mrs. Reynolds," he said, pulling off his work gloves. "Is everything all right?" "I brought you some food," she said, suddenly feeling foolish. "I thought, since the store won't sell to you anymore, You might be running low on supplies." Cole's face softened. "That's kind of you, madam. But you shouldn't have come all the way out here. If your husband finds out—" "He's gone to Selena for a week," Lily said quickly. "And please, call me Lily. I feel like we're past formalities after you found me crying in the dark." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "All right then, Lily. And I'm Cole. Why don't you come up to the house and have some water? It's too hot to be riding around the countryside without a break." The ranch house was simple but comfortable, with wide windows that caught the breeze and a deep porch that provided shade. Cole's quarters were in a small foreman's cottage out back, neat and spare. He brought her water from the well, cold and sweet, and they sat on the porch steps in the morning sun. "I've been reading old newspapers," Lily said after a moment, "about Daniel Crawford and the others. My husband has done this before, ruined people with lies. You're not the first." Cole was quiet, turning his tin cup in his hands. "I figured as much. A man doesn't get that good at lying without practice." "I'm sorry," Lily said, and she meant it with her whole heart. "I'm sorry that I'm married to a man like that. I'm sorry that my association with him makes me complicit in what he does." "You're not responsible for his actions," Cole said firmly. "You're just trying to survive." "Is that all I'm doing?" Lily asked, and she heard the bitterness in her own voice. "Just surviving? What kind of life is that?" Cole looked at her then, really looked at her, and she felt seen in a way she had not been seen in years. "It's the life you have right now," he said gently, "but it doesn't have to be the life you always have." "What do you mean?" "I mean you could leave," Cole said carefully. "Women do it sometimes when their husbands are cruel. You could go to your family or to friends, or even just to another town where you could start fresh." "I don't have family anymore," Lily said, "and Thomas made sure I don't have friends. He's been isolating me for 3 years, and I was too stupid to see it happening." "You're not stupid," Cole said with sudden intensity. "You're trapped, and that's different. A smart woman in a bad situation is still just a woman in a bad situation." They talked for hours that morning, sitting on the porch while the sun climbed higher and the cicadas sang in the cottonwoods. Lily told him things she had never told anyone, about her parents' death, about her rushed marriage to Thomas, about the gradual realization that she had made a terrible mistake. Cole listened without judgment, without trying to fix things or offer easy solutions. In turn, he told her about himself. He was 26 years old, from a small town in Texas. His parents had died when he was young, and he had been raised by an older brother who worked cattle. He had learned the cowboy trade young, drifting from ranch to ranch, never staying in one place too long. He had saved enough money to buy his own land someday, a small spread where he could raise horses. "Why horses?" Lily asked. Cole smiled, and it transformed his face from handsome to beautiful. "Horses are honest," he said. "They don't lie about what they're feeling or what they want. If you treat them right, they'll be loyal forever. If you treat them wrong, they'll let you know right quick. I appreciate that kind of straightforward dealing." "Unlike people," Lily said. Unlike some people," Cole corrected. "There are good folks in the world, Lily. You just happened to marry one of the bad ones." When the sun was directly overhead, Lily knew she needed to return to town before her absence was noticed. Cole walked her to her horse, his hand lingering on the reins as he helped her mount. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "It meant a lot knowing someone in town doesn't believe the lies." "I'll come back if I can," Lily said impulsively, "if that's all right with you." "It's more than all right," Cole said, and the warmth in his eyes made her heart skip. "You're welcome here any time, Lily. Remember what I said before. If you ever need help day or night, you come find me." Lily rode back to Concordia with her thoughts in turmoil. She knew she was playing with fire, visiting Cole Foster like this. If Thomas found out, the consequences would be severe. But she also knew that she could not stop herself. For the first time in 3 years, she had felt like a real person again, not just a possession or a prop in Thomas's performance of respectability. She visited the Circle K 3 more times that week, each time bringing supplies and staying a little longer. They talked about everything and nothing, books they had read, places they had seen, dreams they harbored for the future. Cole showed her how to work with the horses, teaching her the subtle language of pressure and release, patience and reward. She learned that she had a gift for it, that the horses responded to her gentle touch and quiet voice. On her last visit before Thomas was due to return, Cole took her riding along the river. They followed a trail through the cottonwoods to a place where the water ran clear over smooth stones. Cole spread a blanket in the shade, and they ate the lunch Lily had packed: cold chicken and biscuits, fresh tomatoes from the ranch garden, apple pie she had baked that morning. "I don't want to go back," Lily said suddenly, watching the river flow past. "I know I have to, but I don't want to." "Then don't," Cole said simply. "Stay here. I'll help you. We'll figure something out." Lily turned to look at him, her heart pounding. "Cole, I'm married. I can't just leave my husband, no matter how much I might want to. It's not legal, and it's not right." "What's not right is him treating you the way he does," Cole said, his voice rough with emotion. "What's not right is you spending your life afraid and alone. Lily, I know I don't have any claim on you, and I know we've only known each other a short time, but I have to tell you that I care about you. More than I should, probably, but I can't help it." "Cole," Lily whispered, torn between joy and despair. "You don't have to say anything," Cole said quickly. "I just needed you to know. I needed you to know that you have choices, even if they don't seem like good ones right now." Lily felt tears streaming down her cheeks. "I care about you too," she admitted. "I think I've been falling in love with you since that night you found me crying. But Cole, I'm so afraid. Thomas won't just let me go. He'll come after me, and he'll destroy you in the process. He's already tried to ruin your reputation. If he finds out about us, even just as friends, he'll do worse." "Let him try," Cole said fiercely. "I'm not afraid of Thomas Reynolds." "Maybe you should be," Lily said. "He's more dangerous than you think." They rode back to the ranch in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. When they reached the yard, Cole helped Lily dismount, his hands lingering on her waist. They stood close together, close enough that Lily could feel the warmth of his body, smell the clean scent of soap and leather and sun-warmed skin. "Be safe," Cole said softly, lifting one hand to touch her cheek. "Promise me you'll be safe." "I promise," Lily whispered, even though they both knew it was a promise she might not be able to keep. Thomas returned from Salina in a foul mood, and Lily learned through careful questioning that his business had not gone well. He had lost a major contract to a competitor and blamed everyone but himself. For the next 2 weeks, he was impossible to live with, finding fault with everything Lily did and making her pay for his failures. She bore it as she had always borne it, retreating into herself, making herself small and quiet. But now there was a difference. Now she had a secret place in her heart where Thomas could not reach, a place filled with memories of sunshine on the river and Cole's gentle voice teaching her about horses and the feeling of being valued for herself. She did not dare return to the Circle K ranch, knowing that Thomas was watching her more closely than usual. But she thought about Cole constantly, wondered if he thought of her, hoped that he understood why she had stayed away. Then, in mid-September, everything changed. Lily was at the general store when she heard the commotion outside. Men were shouting, and there was the sound of breaking glass. She hurried to the door and saw a crowd gathered in the street. In the center of the crowd was Cole Foster, facing off against 3 men she recognized as Thomas's associates. "We told you to stay out of town," one of the men was saying. It was Jacob Miller, the banker's son, drunk even though it was barely past noon. "We don't want your kind here, Foster." "I just came for supplies," Cole said calmly, though Lily could see the tension in his shoulders. "I'm not looking for trouble." "Well, you found it anyway," Jacob sneered, and he swung a wild punch at Cole's head. Cole dodged easily, his cowboy reflexes serving him well. But there were 3 men, and they came at him from different sides. Cole fought back, his movements efficient and controlled, trying to defend himself without seriously hurting anyone. But the odds were against him, and soon he was bleeding from a cut above his eye. "Stop it!" Lily heard herself shout, pushing through the crowd. "Stop it right now!" The men paused, surprised to see her. Cole looked at her with alarm, shaking his head slightly as if to warn her away. But Lily was beyond caring about consequences. "This man has done nothing wrong," she said loudly, addressing the crowd. "You're attacking him based on lies, and it's shameful." "Mrs. Reynolds, you should go home," Jacob said, trying to sound respectful, but failing. "This is men's business." "This is my business," Lily said firmly, "because I know the truth. My husband lied about Cole Foster, just like he's lied about other people in this town. Daniel Crawford was telling the truth 3 years ago. Thomas was stealing from the grain merchants. And Cole Foster never beat anyone in Abilene or anywhere else. He's a good man, and you're all too blind to see it. The crowd had gone silent, staring at her in shock. Lily felt her heart racing, knew she had just crossed a line she could never uncross, but she also felt a strange sense of freedom. The truth was out now, for better or worse. "You don't know what you're saying," Jacob said, but he sounded uncertain. "I know exactly what I'm saying," Lily replied. "I've been married to Thomas Reynolds for 3 years, and I've watched him destroy people with rumors and lies. He's doing it to Cole Foster now, and I won't stand by and watch anymore." She turned to Cole, who was staring at her with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Are you all right?" she asked gently. "I'm fine," Cole said, touching the cut over his eye. "But Lily, you shouldn't have done that. Your husband will be furious." "I don't care anymore," Lily said, and she was surprised to find that it was true. "I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of watching innocent people suffer because of his lies." The crowd was beginning to murmur, people talking among themselves. Lily saw doubt on many faces, saw the seeds of suspicion beginning to grow. Martha Wilson stepped forward, her expression troubled. "Is it true, Lily?" she asked quietly. "What you said about Daniel Crawford?" "It's true," Lily confirmed. "I found the old newspapers in the church library. Thomas wrote multiple letters defending himself, using different names to make it seem like everyone supported him. He's been doing it for years, manipulating people and destroying anyone who threatens him or inconveniences him." "These are serious accusations," said Reverend Morrison, stepping forward from the crowd. "If what you're saying is true, Mrs. Reynolds, then we need to investigate the matter properly." "Investigate all you want," Lily said. "Talk to Miss Howell at the library. Look at the old papers. Talk to the people who left town after my husband ruined their reputations. The truth is there if you're willing to see it." She turned back to Cole. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. I was afraid, but that's no excuse." "Don't apologize," Cole said, his voice rough with emotion. "You're the bravest person I've ever met." "Mrs. Reynolds, perhaps you should come with me," Reverend Morrison said gently. "We should talk about this in private." But before Lily could respond, there was a shout from down the street. Thomas was striding toward them, his face purple with rage. The crowd parted to let him through, and Lily felt her newfound courage waver. She knew that look, knew what it meant. "What the hell is going on here?" Thomas demanded, his eyes fixed on Lily. "What lies have you been telling these people?" "No lies," Lily said, lifting her chin despite the fear coursing through her. "Only the truth. I told them what you did to Daniel Crawford and the others. I told them what you're doing to Cole Foster." Thomas's hand shot out and grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "You're coming home right now," he said through gritted teeth. "We're going to discuss this in private." "Let go of her," Cole said, his voice deadly quiet. Thomas turned to look at Cole as if seeing him for the first time. His eyes narrowed and a cruel smile twisted his lips. "So that's what this is about," he said slowly. "My wife's been stepping out with you. That's why she's suddenly so eager to defend you." "That's not true," Lily protested. "Cole and I are just friends." "Friends?" Thomas spat. "Is that what you call it when a married woman sneaks around with another man? Tell me, wife, how long has this been going on?" "I visited him a few times to bring supplies when the store refused to sell to him," Lily said, trying to keep her voice steady. "That's all. We talked, nothing more." "Liar," Thomas said, his grip on her arm tightening. "You've been betraying me, and now you're trying to turn the whole town against me to cover your own sins." "Mr. Reynolds, please release your wife," Reverend Morrison said firmly. "This matter can be discussed calmly, without violence." "This is between me and my wife," Thomas snarled. "The rest of you should mind your own business." "Let her go," Cole said again, taking a step forward. "You're hurting her." Thomas laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "This is rich," he said. "The violent criminal telling me how to treat my own wife. Maybe you should worry about yourself, Foster, because when I'm done destroying your reputation, you won't be able to find work anywhere in Kansas." "I think you're the one who should worry," Cole said evenly, "because the truth has a way of coming out, and when it does, everyone's going to see you for what you really are." Something in Thomas snapped then. He released Lily's arm and lunged at Cole, swinging wildly. But Cole was ready this time, and he ducked under Thomas's punch easily. Thomas came at him again, and this time Cole caught his wrist, twisting it just enough to force Thomas to his knees. "I don't want to hurt you," Cole said quietly, "but I won't let you hurt her anymore either." "She's my wife," Thomas shouted, struggling against Cole's grip. "I have every right to discipline her as I see fit." "No man has the right to hurt a woman," Cole said, and there was steel in his voice. "That's not discipline. It's cruelty, and I won't stand by and watch it anymore." He released Thomas and stepped back, his hands held up in a gesture of peace. Thomas scrambled to his feet, his face twisted with humiliation and rage. He looked around at the crowd, at the faces of people who had respected him just minutes ago, and Lily saw the moment he realized that his carefully constructed reputation was crumbling. "You'll all regret this," Thomas said, his voice shaking. "Every single one of you. I have power in this town, and I'll use it to crush anyone who stands against me." "I don't think so," said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Judge Anderson pushing through the crowd, his expression grave. "Mr. Reynolds, I've been listening to these accusations, and I think we need to have a serious conversation about your conduct." Thomas paled. Judge Anderson was one of the few men in Concordia whose authority exceeded his own. "Your Honor, I can explain everything. My wife is confused, and this cowboy has been filling her head with lies." "I'm not confused," Lily said firmly, "and Cole hasn't lied about anything. But my husband has, repeatedly and deliberately, to destroy innocent people." Judge Anderson nodded slowly. "Mrs. Reynolds, would you be willing to make a formal statement about what you've witnessed during your marriage? Under oath?" Lily looked at Thomas, saw the threat in his eyes, and felt fear try to close around her heart. Then she looked at Cole, saw the quiet strength and support in his gaze, and felt her courage return. "Yes, Your Honor," she said clearly. "I'll tell you everything." The next few hours were a blur. Judge Anderson convened an emergency session in his chambers with Reverend Morrison, Sheriff Thompson, and several other town leaders in attendance. Lily gave her testimony, describing in careful detail the pattern of lies and manipulation she had witnessed. She told them about Daniel Crawford and the others, about the forged letters and the systematic destruction of reputations. Then, at the judge's request, they sent for Miss Howell and the old newspapers. They examined the letters, comparing handwriting, looking for patterns. Martha Wilson came forward with her own suspicions. Other townspeople, emboldened by Lily's courage, shared stories they had been too afraid to voice before. By evening, a picture had emerged of Thomas Reynolds that was very different from the respectable merchant everyone had believed him to be. Judge Anderson's face was grave as he listened to testimony after testimony, his fingers steepled under his chin. Thomas tried to defend himself, spinning stories and making excuses, but for once his silver tongue failed him. The evidence was too overwhelming, the testimony too consistent. Even his closest allies began to distance themselves, unwilling to be associated with a man whose true nature had been revealed. Finally, Judge Anderson made his ruling. Thomas Reynolds was to be investigated for fraud and theft related to the Grain Merchants Collective. He was also banned from spreading rumors or making accusations about anyone in town, on pain of criminal charges. His business assets would be frozen pending the investigation. "As for your marriage," the judge said, looking at Lily, "I cannot grant you a divorce, Mrs. Reynolds. That would require a lengthy legal process, but I can offer you legal separation and protection. If Mr. Reynolds comes near you or attempts to harm you in any way, he will be arrested immediately." Lily felt tears of relief streaming down her face. It was not complete freedom, but it was more than she had dared to hope for. "Where will she stay?" Thomas demanded. "She has no money, no family. She'll have to come back to me eventually." "She'll stay with my wife and me," Martha Wilson said firmly, stepping forward, "for as long as she needs to." "And the church will provide support as well," Reverend Morrison added. "We take care of our own, Mrs. Reynolds. You won't be alone." Thomas's face contorted with fury, but there was nothing he could do. He was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. As Sheriff Thompson led him away, still protesting and making threats, Lily felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she had been carrying for 3 long years. Cole was waiting outside the judge's chambers when she finally emerged. He stood as she approached, his hat in his hands, his expression anxious. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. "I am now," Lily said, and she smiled through her tears. Thank you, Cole. Thank you for being brave enough to let me be brave too. You did this yourself, Cole said. I just gave you a reason to fight. They stood looking at each other, aware of the people around them, aware that they were being watched and judged. Cole reached out and gently took her hand, a gesture of comfort and support that anyone could see was innocent, but that felt to Lily like the most intimate thing in the world. What will you do now? He asked. I don't know, Lily admitted. Stay with Martha for a while, I suppose. Try to figure out what my life looks like without Thomas in it. It's strange, being free, but not really free. Still married, but not a wife anymore. You'll figure it out, Cole said with quiet confidence. You're stronger than you think, Lily Reynolds. I hope so, she said. And Cole, what about you? Will you stay in Concordia now that everyone knows the truth? Cole smiled. I reckon I will, at least for a while. I've got a good job at the Circle K, and the owner already said he wants me to stay on permanently. Besides, he added, his eyes warm, I've got a reason to stay in town now. Lily felt her heart skip, understanding his meaning. But she also knew that anything between them would have to wait. She was still legally married, and while the town might have forgiven her for standing up to Thomas, they would not forgive an open affair. I need time, she said quietly. Time to heal, time to figure out who I am without fear. Do you understand? I understand, Cole said, and I'll wait, Lily. As long as it takes. The autumn passed slowly. Lily settled into Martha Wilson's guest room and began the process of rebuilding her life. She found work helping Miss Howell at the library, organizing books and assisting patrons. The work was quiet and satisfying, and Miss Howell became a good friend, teaching Lily about literature and history and all the things she had missed during her isolated marriage. Thomas's trial proceeded through the fall and into winter. The investigation uncovered even more evidence of fraud and embezzlement than anyone had suspected. Thomas had been skimming from the grain merchants for years, cooking the books and blaming shortfalls on others. When the full extent of his crimes came to light, he was sentenced to 5 years in the territorial prison in Lansing. The day they took him away, Lily stood at Martha's window and watched the wagon disappear down the street. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, not even pity. Just a profound relief that he was gone and could not hurt anyone anymore. Cole came to visit her regularly through that autumn and winter, always proper and respectful, always mindful of her reputation. They would sit in Martha's parlor and talk for hours, with Martha chaperoning from a discreet distance. Sometimes they would walk through town together, Lily's hand resting lightly on Cole's arm, and gradually the townspeople grew accustomed to seeing them together. But they did not speak of love, and they did not make promises. Lily was still healing from 3 years of fear and control, and Cole understood that she needed space to become whole again before she could give her heart to anyone. Then, in early spring, news came that changed everything. Thomas Reynolds had been killed in a prison fight, stabbed by another inmate over a gambling debt. He was dead, and Lily was a widow. She should have felt something, sorrow or guilt or at least shock, but instead, she felt only a quiet sense of closure, as if a door had finally closed on a painful chapter of her life. She was free now, truly free, and the future stretched out before her full of possibilities. Cole came to see her the day after she received the news. They sat together on Martha's porch swing, watching the spring rain fall on the greening prairie. I'm sorry, Cole said quietly. Even after everything he did, losing a husband must be hard. It's not, Lily admitted. Is that terrible? I don't feel sad at all. I just feel relieved. That's not terrible, Cole assured her. That's honest. You don't owe Thomas Reynolds your grief, Lily. He gave you nothing but pain. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the rain. Then Cole spoke again, his voice hesitant. I know it's too soon, he said. I know you're still getting used to being free. But Lily, I have to tell you again that I love you. I've loved you since that first night when I found you crying, and I've loved you more every day since then. I'm not asking for anything right now. I just need you to know. Lily turned to look at him, this good man who had been patient and kind when he had every right to walk away. She thought about the months they had spent together, the quiet companionship that had grown between them, the way her heart lifted every time she saw him. "Cole," she said softly, "I love you too. I think I've loved you for a long time, but I was too afraid to admit it, even to myself. And you're right that it's too soon. I need more time before I can think about marrying again. But I want you to know that when I'm ready, if you still want me, the answer will be yes." Cole's face lit up with such joy that Lily felt tears spring to her eyes. He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers, and they sat together on the porch swing, watching the rain and dreaming of the future. Lily waited a full year before she agreed to marry Cole, wanting to be sure that she had fully healed from her first marriage, wanting to be certain that what she felt was real and lasting. During that year, they courted properly, with all the small courtesies and rituals that she had missed the first time around. Cole brought her flowers and took her on picnics. They went to church socials together and danced at the Harvest Festival. He introduced her to his friends at the Circle K Ranch, and she taught him about books and poetry. Slowly, carefully, Lily learned to trust again. She learned that not all men were like Thomas, that kindness was not a mask for cruelty, that love could be gentle and patient and true. Cole never pushed her, never demanded more than she was ready to give. He courted her as if she were precious, as if her happiness mattered more than his own desires. They were married in June of 1880, 2 years after they had first met. It was a simple ceremony in the Concordia church, with Martha Wilson as matron of honor and the ranch owner from the Circle K standing up for Cole. Nearly the whole town attended, including many of the people who had once shunned Cole based on Thomas's lies. Reverend Morrison performed the ceremony, his voice warm with approval as he pronounced them husband and wife. Lily wore a dress of pale blue silk that Martha had helped her sew, and she carried wildflowers from the prairie. When Cole lifted her veil and saw her face, his eyes filled with tears of joy. Their kiss was sweet and tender, a promise of all the good things to come. They spent their wedding night at the foreman's cottage on the Circle K Ranch, which Cole had spent weeks preparing for his new bride. He had built new furniture and sewn curtains and planted a flower garden outside the door. It was small but beautiful, and Lily loved it on sight. That night, as they lay together in their marriage bed, Cole held her gently and whispered all the things he loved about her courage, her kindness, her strength, her gentle spirit. Lily cried happy tears and told him that he had saved her, not just from Thomas, but from a life of fear and loneliness. "We saved each other," Cole said, kissing her forehead. "You gave me something to fight for, Lily. You made me believe that good things can happen, even in a hard world." Their life together settled into a happy rhythm. Cole continued working as foreman at the Circle K, and Lily kept her job at the library, though now she worked fewer hours so she could help Cole with his plans. He had been saving money for years, dreaming of buying his own land, and with Lily's encouragement, he finally did it. They bought 160 acres along the Republican River, good land with water and grass for horses. Cole built them a house with his own hands, a sturdy frame building with big windows and a wide porch. Lily planted a garden and fruit trees, creating beauty in the midst of the wild prairie. They started their horse breeding operation in the spring of 1881. Cole had a gift for training horses, and Lily discovered that she had inherited her father's head for business. Together they built a reputation for producing quality stock, cow ponies that were steady and reliable, carriage horses that were gentle and well-mannered. People came from as far away as Topeka and Kansas City to buy foster horses. Their life was not without challenges. The Kansas weather could be brutal, with summer droughts and winter blizzards. There were years when the foals didn't survive, years when the grass dried up and they had to buy hay at premium prices. But they faced every challenge together, and somehow that made even the hard times bearable. In the fall of 1882, Lily discovered she was pregnant. She was nervous about becoming a mother, worried that she would somehow damage her child the way Thomas had damaged her. But Cole was patient and reassuring, reminding her that she was nothing like her first husband, that she had more love to give than she knew. Their son was born in May of 1883, during a spring thunderstorm that shook the house and sent lightning crackling across the prairie sky. Cole delivered the baby himself with steady hands, and when he placed the squalling infant in Lily's arms, she felt her heart expand to hold more love than she had ever imagined possible. They named him James Cole Foster, after Cole's father and brother. Jamie was a healthy baby with his father's dark hair and his mother's green eyes, and he was absolutely adored. Cole proved to be a natural father, patient and playful, teaching his son about horses and the land with the same gentle authority he had once used to teach Lily. 2 years later, they had a daughter. Carolyn Martha Foster arrived on a warm September evening, smaller than her brother had been, but fierce and determined from the start. She inherited her mother's red gold hair and her father's stubborn streak, and she grew up fearless, climbing trees and riding horses almost before she could walk. And then, 3 years after that, came another son, Thomas Samuel Foster, named for Cole's grandfather and Lily's father. Tommy was the sweetest of the 3 children, gentle and thoughtful, with a gift for music that surprised everyone. Cole bought an old piano from a family moving back east, and Tommy taught himself to play by ear, filling their home with melody. The years passed in a blur of work and love and laughter. Lily sometimes thought about her first marriage, about the frightened girl she had been, and marveled at how far she had come. She was 35 years old now, with 3 children and a successful ranch, and a husband who loved her more deeply with every passing year. Cole still looked at her sometimes the way he had that first night by the prairie, with wonder and tenderness, as if he could not quite believe his good fortune. And Lily looked back at him with the same amazement, grateful every day for the courage that had brought them together. The town of Concordia had changed too. The railroad had come through in 1884, bringing new prosperity and new people. The grain industry boomed, and the town grew larger and more sophisticated. But Lily and Cole stayed on their ranch, preferring the open prairie to the bustle of town life. They became respected members of the community, known for their honesty and their kindness. Cole served on the school board and helped build the new church. Lily organized the library fundraiser and taught Sunday school. They hosted barn dances and helped their neighbors through hard times, remembering what it was like to need help themselves. Sometimes people would ask Lily about her first husband, curious about the scandal that had rocked the town so many years ago. She would answer simply and without bitterness, explaining that Thomas had been a troubled man who had hurt many people, but that she had forgiven him and moved on. She did not dwell on the past, preferring to focus on the present and the future. On their 10th wedding anniversary in 1890, Cole took Lily back to the spot by the river where he had first told her he loved her. The cottonwoods had grown taller, and the river ran as clear as ever over the smooth stones. They spread a blanket in the shade, and Cole pulled out a small box. Inside was a gold locket on a delicate chain. When Lily opened it, she found a tiny photograph of their 3 children on one side, and on the other, an inscription. To Lily, who taught me what courage looks like. Love, Cole. Lily fastened the locket around her neck with trembling fingers, then turned to kiss her husband. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for saving me, for loving me, for giving me this beautiful life. Thank you for taking a chance on a cowboy everyone thought was cruel," Cole said, smiling. "Thank you for seeing who I really was, even when no one else would." They made love that afternoon by the river, slow and sweet, celebrating a decade of partnership and devotion. When they rode home as the sun was setting, Lily felt a profound sense of contentment. This was what she had always wanted, a home filled with love, children who were safe and happy, a husband who cherished her. The years continued to pass. Jamie grew up to be a fine horseman like his father, taking over more and more of the ranch work as Cole's joints began to ache with age. Carolyn married a neighboring rancher's son, a good young man who treated her with respect and adoration. Tommy went to college in Topeka to study music, coming home for holidays with stories of city life and new compositions to play on the old piano. Lily and Cole grew older together, their hair turning gray, their faces lining with the marks of hard work and much laughter. But their love never dimmed. If anything, it grew stronger with time, tested by challenges and tempered by experience. In 1905, on a warm summer evening, very much like the one when they had first met, Lily and Cole sat together on their porch and watched the sun set over the prairie. Their grandchildren were playing in the yard, shrieking with laughter as they chased fireflies. Caroline was pregnant with her 4th child, and Jamie's eldest son was learning to break horses under his grandfather's patient guidance. "Did you ever imagine this?" Lily asked, resting her head on Cole's shoulder. "All those years ago when you found me crying by the prairie, did you ever imagine we would end up here?" "I imagined loving you," Cole said, wrapping his arm around her. "I imagined that from the very first moment. But all the rest, the children and grandchildren, the ranch and the life we built together, that exceeded my wildest dreams, Lily." "Mine too," Lily said softly. "I was so broken when we met, Cole. I didn't think I could ever be whole again. But you helped me heal, and then you loved me back to life." "You did the same for me," Cole reminded her. "I was angry and hurt when I came to Concordia, bitter about the injustice of your husband's lies. But you showed me that standing up for what's right matters, that truth wins in the end. You made me want to be a better man." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky deepened from gold to purple to indigo. The children's laughter drifted up from the yard, mingling with the evening birdsong and the distant lowing of cattle. It was a perfect moment, the kind that marks a life well lived. "Do you have any regrets?" Cole asked suddenly. Lily thought about the question carefully. "I regret the years I lost with Thomas," she said finally. "I regret that I didn't see what he was sooner, that I let fear keep me trapped for so long. But I don't regret the journey that brought me to you, Cole. Every hard moment and every painful choice led me here, and I wouldn't trade this life for anything." "Neither would I," Cole said, kissing the top of her head. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Lily Foster, the very best thing." They lived many more years together, watching their children thrive and their grandchildren grow. Cole passed away peacefully in his sleep in the winter of 1912, at the age of 60. Lily held his hand as he took his last breath, whispering her love and gratitude for the life they had shared. She lived another 8 years, surrounded by family, still sharp and engaged until the very end. She died in the spring of 1920, in the house Cole had built for her, with her children and grandchildren gathered around her bed. Her last words were of love and thankfulness, gratitude for the second chance she had been given and the courage she had found to take it. They buried her next to Cole on a hill overlooking the river, where wildflowers grew thick in the spring and the grass waved golden in the autumn wind. The headstones were simple, carved with their names and dates and a single line: "Together forever, in love and grace." And on summer evenings, when the light slants golden across the prairie and the fireflies dance in the gathering dusk, you can almost see them there still, a cowboy and his lady, sitting side by side on their porch, watching the sunset and counting their blessings, living proof that even in the hardest times, love can heal and hope can triumph and courage can change everything. Their story became legend in Concordia, passed down through generations as an example of what it means to stand up for what's right, to choose love over fear, to believe in second chances. The Foster Ranch continued to operate well into the 20th century, run by Jamie's descendants, a lasting testament to the life Cole and Lily had built together. And somewhere in the archives of the Concordia Library, carefully preserved in acid-free folders, are the old newspapers that Lily once read by lamplight, searching for truth in a world of lies. Miss Howell had saved them at Lily's request, wanting future generations to understand that justice and truth matter, that one person's courage can change a community, that speaking up against cruelty is always the right choice, no matter the cost. The story of Lily and Cole Foster reminds us that love is not always easy or simple, that sometimes it requires tremendous courage to claim the life and happiness we deserve. It reminds us that good people can be destroyed by lies, but that truth has a way of emerging if someone is brave enough to speak it. Most of all, it reminds us that it's never too late to start over, to find love, to build a life of meaning and joy. In the wild and often brutal world of the American West in the late 19th century, where survival was uncertain and justice was sometimes hard to find, Lily and Cole created something beautiful and lasting. They proved that kindness is not weakness, that gentleness is not incompatible with strength, that love can flourish even in the hardest soil if it's tended with care and patience. Their legacy lived on not just in their descendants, but in the changed character of Concordia itself. After Thomas Reynolds's crimes were exposed and Lily's courage inspired others to speak truth, the town became known as a place where honesty mattered, where reputations were earned rather than manufactured, where the vulnerable were protected rather than exploited. It was a small change in a big world, but it mattered to the people who lived there, and it stands as testament to what one woman's courage and one man's steadfast love could accomplish. On quiet evenings in Concordia, when the wind whispers through the cottonwoods and the river runs clear over ancient stones, old-timers still tell the story of the cowboy who was falsely accused and the woman who risked everything to defend him. They tell it to their children and grandchildren, keeping alive the memory of Lily and Cole Foster, who proved that love can conquer fear, that truth can defeat lies, and that sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply refusing to be silent in the face of injustice. And so, their story ends as it began, with courage and truth and love, with a man and a woman standing together against the darkness, with hope triumphant and justice served, and two hearts beating as one. It is a story worth remembering, worth retelling, worth celebrating, a reminder that even in the harshest landscape, the human spirit can create beauty, and that love, when it's true and deep and lasting, can redeem even the most painful past and build a future bright with promise.